In this world ruled by snakes, every year 99 high-quality spirit rabbits are offered as tributes. The snake tribe comes to the palace for entertainment, and the rabbits tremble in fear upon seeing them. Here it's either into their mouths or into their arms. Only those selected for transformation have a slim chance of survival. Otherwise, they will all be made into spicy rabbit heads or lightly seasoned rabbit dishes. Upon hearing this, all the rabbits tremble in fear. Watching their companions hurriedly transform, only Nono remains unmoved. This is because her mother had told her since birth to never transform, even if it meant being swallowed whole by the snake tribe. The more you act weak and vulnerable, the more they thirst for blood and excitement. Transforming will only bring endless suffering. So Nono took the opportunity to escape. She couldn't afford to be selected as she still had a mission to complete, but in the next second she was kicked away by an unknown force. She fell right under a snake's foot. Dazed, she looked up and saw. It was the royal family. Nono dared not speak. Her life was in danger, just as she lamented whether she would become spicy rabbit heads or fried rabbit legs. Suddenly, a hand lifted her up and a medicinal fragrance immediately wafted towards her. The snake lord, who appeared soft and gentle, seemed like a kind-hearted being, surely a benevolent snake. But nearby, another snake bowed its head, urging that the medicinal rabbit should be consumed. The prince, hearing this, scoffed, calling the creature a fool who couldn't even transform, unworthy of his attention. After hearing this, the snake immediately attacked, intending to claim Nono for himself. Terrified, Nono made a decision that went against her ancestors. With a sudden push, Nono launched herself at the prince, and in the blink of an eye, kissed him in front of everyone. The air was quiet for a moment, and then the prince spoke. Though I don't eat, I never said I didn't want. I'll take you back and punish you properly. Nono, hearing this, began to struggle with all her might. But under the threat of his power, she could only surrender. Good rabbits don't resist, she thought. If she didn't move, then she wouldn't. Thus, Nono was taken back to the palace. From the conversation between the servant girl and the prince, Nono learned that it turns out the snake disease had already spread to the third prince, Sunyi, who had long been ill. There are 7 princes in total. The eldest prince is the most favored by the royal family and the most likely to be the next ruler. But Tang Xiu, due to being ill for many years, is the least valued. Upon thinking this, Nono couldn't help but sigh. Being brought back by him, it seemed she was destined to be eaten. After tonight, she would become meat stew. She felt so pitiful and her stomach growled involuntarily. Hunger made her situation even more unbearable. Just as Nono was filled with sadness, a pair of large eyes suddenly appeared, staring at her. Are you hungry? He looked harmless, innocent, and kind. He seemed to have no bad intentions. Then he casually opened the cage. In the palace, he openly took her to eat something delicious, but she remembered the prince's threat. Nono quickly looked around, but there was no sign of the prince anywhere. In the blink of an eye, various fried meatballs and fried chicken legs were placed in front of Nono, but Nono dared not eat. If discovered, next time it would be her rabbit legs in the plate. Seeing Nono's troubled expression, the little snake prince gently set the plate down. You're the little offering that was brought back to nourish me, right? Nono froze upon hearing this. She thought, wasn't I captured by the third prince? Who is this? At this moment, the little snake prince gently bent down, stroking Nono's head. Don't be afraid. All your offerings are foolish and clumsy. I won't eat you. Looking at the little snake prince's appearance, tone, and the way he flicked his tail when he was pleased, Nono couldn't help but wonder, could he be the third prince, Sunyi Wang's son? Before Nono could think more, the meatball was offered to her again. I'll eat with you, then you won't have to worry about being punished. After a hearty meal, Nono fell into a deep sleep under the little snake prince's gentle care. The next day, Nono, deep in her sleep, was awakened by the loud footsteps outside the door. Not good, someone is coming. Looking to the side, the little snake prince had already disappeared. It's over, snake's words are never to be trusted. At this moment, Nono saw the meal box on the table and got an idea. Not long after, the servant girls opened the door and entered. They picked up the meal box containing Nono and left. The soup for Master Lu is ready. Inside the meal box, Nono immediately froze. Master Lu, this is like walking right into a trap. At this moment, the third prince was also asking if they had found the little thing. The butler shook his head, indicating there was no news, but he should still be in the palace. The prince took the medicine box and muttered, I hope he hasn't escaped, otherwise he'll die a miserable death. But the next second, when the medicine box was opened, the third prince froze. Inside, Nono was gazing up at him with tearful eyes, pitifully looking at him. The third prince, seeing this, immediately grabbed her. You're quite good at hiding, huh? At this moment, Nono narrowed her eyes and secretly glanced at him. What entered her sight was the graceful figure of a swordsman. Nono couldn't help but salivate, he's just too much. Then her body involuntarily became heated. Seeing this, the third prince looked disgusted and casually tossed her away. But Nono, as if forgetting her fear, suddenly pounced on the third prince like an aggressive rabbit. Nono didn't even know why she was doing this. Why did she feel like she just had to get closer to him? The third prince, seeing this, spoke with slight anger. "You're grateful to me, aren't you?" Upon hearing this, Nono instantly snapped back to reality. At this moment, the butler finally seized the opportunity. "Master, this offering ate last night and has gained weight again. Should we stew it or roast it?" The prince smiled faintly. "Let's give him his gift first." Then they saw Luyi bring a paper rabbit and right in front of Nono, snapped it in half with a loud crack. This scared Nono, who began to flee in all directions. "Help! If I don't run, I'll lose my life." Perhaps due to the panic, the next second, she crashed headfirst into the wall. The prince then grabbed Nono, who had a shocked expression. "You really are not easily frightened," and then held her in his arms. "This is the result of your gratitude. Remember it." Feeling Nono still struggling, the third prince applied more pressure, pinning her to his chest. The blood from her broken forehead began to drip out. As the blood started to shine on the third prince's chest, Nono's heart skipped a beat. Oh no. Could this be blood chi? The blood chi bond allows both parties to sense each other's life and death, sharing the same fate. Nono feigned calmness, secretly thinking that establishing a blood connection with Tang Xiu was surely something she had done correctly. As long as there was a mark on her forehead, it would mean success. But when she looked up, the third prince had no mark on his forehead. Could it be that only half of it succeeded? Nono thought it couldn't just work for her. If that were the case, it would mean only she could sense Tang Xiu, and if he died, she wouldn't survive either. Thinking this, Nono made up her mind and rushed toward Tang Xiu's forehead, wanting to see if she could complete the other half of the blood connection. But halfway through, Tang Xiu grabbed her ear. With an unhappy face, he threw Nono to the maid, locking her up. "If you don't behave, I'll fry you into a rabbit dish." Nono was locked up for a whole day, and her stomach growled in hunger. Suddenly, a voice saying rabbit made Nono's eyes light up. It was the little snake prince from last time. He said, picking up a chicken leg and handing it to Nono, "You must have been scared, right? Don't worry, I won't let him bully you again." Nono felt deeply comforted by this. The little snake prince was so gentle and kind, luckily not inheriting his father's temper, but the little prince also warned Nono to be cautious in the future. Once he got angry, no one could control him. Upon hearing this, the chicken leg in Nono's mouth lost its flavor. It seemed like she had to be more obedient. At this moment, the little snake prince looked at Nono with a slightly troubled expression. "I've had a secret in my heart for a long time, and I want to tell you, but I'm afraid that if I say too much, you might be silenced." Before Nono could hear more, she instantly jumped up and covered the little snake prince's mouth. "I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it." The little prince understood and gently scratched Nono's nose with his hand. "You're such a clever offering, I like smart rabbits like you." Then he gently patted Nono's head. "Don't worry, I'll find a way to save you." Soon the next morning arrived and Nono woke from her sleep. At the same time, the little snake prince disappeared again. Realizing she was still outside, Nono became flustered. If she was found, her life would be in danger. But then when she turned her head and saw the third prince still asleep, Nono let out a long sigh of relief. She had to hurry back to the cage. Just as she was close to the cage, a large shadow loomed over her. Turning around, she saw Tang Xiu coldly staring at her, trying to escape. Nono immediately shook her head. No, he must have told you that there's no safer place than here with me. If you want to survive, you must behave." After hearing this, Nono's head started shaking wildly. Misunderstanding, I'm really not trying to escape." But the next second she froze. Wait, who is he in Tang Xiu's words? Before she could think more about it, Tang Xiu's snake tail suddenly whipped around, lifting her up, noticing her panic. Tang Xiu leaned in, coldly asking, "Are you scared?" But Nono's focus was entirely on Tang Xiu's chest. The restless feeling from before started spreading throughout her body, making her want to be close to Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu frowned when he saw this. "Is this how you try to please him?" At this moment, Nono couldn't hear his words, only feeling how cool and comfortable the snake tail was. She instinctively tried to press herself against Tang Xiu. Seeing this, Tang Xiu just frowned but didn't refuse. Looking at the cute, pink rabbit in his arms, a faint blush unexpectedly appeared on his face. It really is a troublesome little thing. The rabbit was offered as a tribute to the snake tribe, and if it doesn't transform, it will be made into spicy rabbit heads. But Nono only stole a glance at the snake lord before being lifted up by his tail. Instantly furious, he questioned her. "Don't think you can do whatever you want just because I'm protecting you." Nono felt the anger and was too afraid to even breathe. The next second, Nono's rabbit brain thought quickly, and she suddenly made a cute expression, trying to escape through the alliance. But unexpectedly, Tang Xiu flicked his tail and threw Nono away. "I don't fall for that trick." Soon it was night, and the little snake lord arrived on time, taking Nono to the kitchen to sneak a bite. But Nono, who could eat more and more, now couldn't even squeeze through the hole. "Little snake lord, help me." After much effort from both of them, they still couldn't get out. The little snake lord couldn't help but complain. "What should we do? You can't tunnel through anymore. How will you sneak a bite next time? Nono looked up ready to argue but saw the window on the wall. She suddenly had an idea and quickly tapped the little snake lord, pointing to the window, signaling him to place her there. With the little snake lord's help, they finally found a way out. Standing by the window, Nono waved her hand to signal him to come up. The little snake lord wore a troubled expression, stammering, "I don't like climbing windows." Nono's gaze was fixed. She didn't seem to dislike it, but she was afraid of heights. At this moment, the little snake lord realized that he was a snake and could transform to dig a hole. After getting out, he held Nono down. "Rabbit, you're so heavy I can barely carry you." In the early morning, the rabbit, still asleep, was suddenly grabbed. "You little thing, it seems like you've gotten a bit bigger lately." Nono could only complain inwardly, not daring to say anything about being called fat. Tangzu at that moment pinched Nono's belly, commenting that she had indeed gained weight. Nono, on the other hand, was so ticklish from the pinch that her eyes widened in shock. Tangzu then asked the question that had been puzzling him, "You're never afraid that I'll eat you, are you? Open your eyes and look at me." Nono, inwardly panicking, thought to herself, "This is truly hard to say. How could I dare to look at you?" Seeing her expression, Tangzu couldn't help but get angry. What kind of expression is that? Immediately, he tossed Nono away, saying, "I really don't know what she sees in you. Are you both just as foolish?" Nono, rubbing her head where she had been tossed, muttered, "Tangzu, not only do you dislike me, you even dislike the little snake lord. What kind of father talks like that about their own child?" She could only turn away and stomp her feet into satisfaction. Seeing this, Tangzu wasn't angry but sighed, "You can't even protect your own life, yet you want to protect her?" He then poked the rabbit's rear, saying, "You're doing well. It looks like it's time." Nono, still angry, turned around, confused by his words. Soon it was time for their late-night snack. The little snake lord and Nono arrived in the kitchen as usual. Seeing the latter set up, Nono couldn't help but wonder who had kindly left it there. Looking at the little snake lord, his face full of worry, she realized something was wrong. "Little snake lord, what's wrong? You look really sad." Then she pushed over a skewer of meat to comfort him. The little snake lord remained silent, not responding. Suddenly, he stretched out his arms and hugged Nono tightly. Tears started to well up in his eyes and his throat choked as he spoke, "I can't eat. He wants to send you away, little rabbit." I begged him, but he wouldn't agree. Nono then realized the meaning behind Tangzu's words. It was time to send her to be eaten by someone else. Nono felt the little snake lord's reluctance towards her. After a brief moment of inner struggle, she slowly extended her rabbit paw. She pressed it against the little snake lord's forehead and began casting a spell, hoping that when he woke up, he would forget all about her, so he wouldn't be sad anymore. Just as the spell was about to finish, suddenly a large hand appeared and tightly grabbed hers. The person was none other than Tangzu. "Not bad, not bad. This rabbit has been well-fed, plump, and delicious," he said, and immediately opened his mouth to bite into Nono. Nono screamed and jumped up. "No, no, don't eat me." After a moment of silence, Nono rubbed her eyes. It turned out to be a dream. To her surprise, when she woke up, she had actually transformed. But when she turned her head, the more terrifying sight was that she was actually lying beneath Tangzu. The little snake lord was nowhere to be seen. Just as Nono thought she should return to her rabbit form and get back to the cage before he woke up, Tangzu turned over and pulled her into his arms. At that moment, Nono couldn't help but complain, "Damn, why is he acting like this? If I were still in my original form, I'd probably be a rabbit pancake by now." Her struggles caused Tangzu to furrow his brow slightly. Then he opened his eyes and looked directly at Nono. Nono awkwardly smiled, "Good morning." After a moment, Tangzu got dressed and stood up. "You little thing, you're quite bold. You actually transformed in front of this prince. Haven't I said something? Do you really not remember?" Upon hearing this, Nono immediately waved her hands. Wait, I'll transform back immediately." She tried for a while but still couldn't transform back. "How do I turn back?" Just as she was in distress, Tangzu suddenly raised Nono's chin. "What have I said about transforming you back?" Nono broke into a cold sweat. "It's really hard to speak and think. What do you want me to do? Look at you, all plump and white. You haven't been eating for nothing in the kitchen." Nono, seeing the scene was exactly like in her dream, thought he would eat her just like in the dream. Nono quickly raised her hand to stop him, pleading, "Please, please don't eat me." Tangzu, hearing this, became interested. Why should I not eat you?" At this moment, Nono remembered that 500 years ago, a purple light shot from the forbidden land of the heavens, causing all the females in Tiandu to lose their fertility. Therefore, the Tiandu kingdom valued heirs highly. So if she could. As the thought occurred to her, Nono's heart began to race and her breath quickened. Everything was to delay time and successfully assassinate the crown prince. It was all for Princess Zhu. Just as Nono made up her mind, the moment she was about to kiss him, with her heartbeat intensifying, there was a loud thud. Nono returned to her rabbit form. The two of them stood there embarrassed. The next second, Tangzu picked Nono up. "You really are a little bundle of trouble." At this moment, a servant reported that there was a visitor. The person was none other than the sixth prince, Tangxi. "Third brother, you promised me that you'd give me the tribute today." When Nono saw 6th Prince Tangxi walk into the room, she couldn't help but become a little infatuated. She looks so beautiful, she probably won't eat me, right? Suddenly, while Nono was deep in thought, she was grabbed up. Little thing, why are you looking at her like that? Tang Xiu, with a slightly dissatisfied expression, remarked. Nono immediately shook her head. No, no, I heard the rumors that the 6th prince's biological mother comes from a very powerful family. Her brother controls a third of Tian Du's military power. At this moment, Tang Xi saw his third brother's actions and curiously asked, Third brother, you've always hated tributes. Why are you so fond of this one? Just as he was about to reach out to touch her, he was pulled away by Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu held Nono in his arms. Third brother, you're so petty. Can't you even let me touch her? Since you like her so much, what about the gluttonous and lustful one you promised me? The words gluttonous and lustful pierced Nono's heart. You Tang Xiu are spreading rumors about me like this. Seeing Nono's unfriendly gaze, Tang Xiu awkwardly leaned down and pressed Nono's head. He then looked at Tang Xi and asked, How do you plan to deal with her? Tang Xi, with excitement on his face, replied, Of course I'll make money. My gold fortune depends entirely on these tributes. Upon hearing this, Nono immediately realized that things were going to go badly for her. Tang Xiu then looked at Nono and asked, Can a biting tribute make money? This made Tang Xi even more excited. Biting is fine. Tributes that are timid and weak, if they dare to open their mouths, they must have a strong temper. I can sell them and make money. Nono, hearing this, was instantly scared out of her wits. Her mind involuntarily started to imagine the scene of her being beaten. Her body instinctively tried to burrow into Tang Xiu's arms. As expected, the princes of Tiandu Kingdom like to torment their tributes, she thought, but what Tang Xi said next made Nono's legs shake even more. I arranged a debut for him. There are 10 strong bear rabbits waiting for him. The one in your arms is quite fat. Is this the gluttonous, lazy, timid, and lustful tribute you were talking about? Tang Xiu, upon hearing this, handed Nono over. If you like her, take her. Just as the exchange seemed about to happen, Nono, terrified and drenched in fear, realized she could not be taken away. She turned and grabbed Tang Xiu's clothes tightly, but at that moment her rabbit leg was caught. Let go of me, you fat rabbit, you can forget it. I'll never let go even if I die. Both sides were at a standstill. After a moment, Tang Xi, panting, said, As expected, your tribute is too bold. This is exhausting. At this point, a guard outside announced, 6th Prince, your mother calls for you immediately. Before leaving, he did not forget to say something threatening. Don't think you can escape, I'll be back. Seeing Nono still trembling, Tang Xiu couldn't help but smile faintly. Then he changed his tone. Little thing, haven't I been too kind to you recently? How dare you act so recklessly? At this, Nono could only look up at Tang Xiu with tearful eyes, silently pleading not to be sent away. Seeing this, Tang Xiu waved his arm, saying, Back to your cage. Soon evening arrived. Nono, however, did not wait for the little snake lord to arrive and sighed in disappointment. Didn't he come because he thought I was going to be sent away? With a light push of her rabbit paw, Nono was surprised to find that the cage was not locked. Nono, remembering her mission, immediately ran off, searching for the first prince. Along the way, she unexpectedly heard the little snake lord's voice. I want the rabbit. I hate Tang Xiu. Where did you send the rabbit? Nono immediately started running toward the sound. She had just decided to check it out with her short legs when a shadow suddenly appeared behind her. The shadow trapped her in a sack. Little thing, how dare you come here? Don't you want to live? Inside the sack, Nono still heard the little snake lord's voice. Suddenly, a sharp pain in her shoulder piqued her curiosity. This pain felt like it came from blood and energy. Could it be that Tang Xiu was also in the room and had been injured on his shoulder? In order to understand the reason, Nono bit through the sack with all her strength, and taking advantage of the butler's inattention, jumped out. She then sneaked to the bottom of the house and pried open a tile. As she looked down, Nono's eyes lit up. She was surprised to see that below was Tang Xiu bathing. There were indeed injuries on his shoulder, but what puzzled her was that she had clearly just heard the little snake lord's voice. Where had he gone now? At the same time, butler Lu Yi walked in. Your Highness, the matter from last time, the eldest prince has already started investigating. Tang Xiu's expression turned cold. If you can't even handle this, what use are you? At this moment, Nono only had eyes for Tang Xiu. He seemed to be poisoned. Realizing this, Nono suddenly sat up. If he dies from the poison, my life won't be spared either. Unexpectedly, with this movement, the tile couldn't bear her weight and cracked, and Nono was instantly suspended in the air. She took advantage of the momentum to jump freely and landed in the water. Tang Xiu immediately grabbed the bubbling Nono and pulled her up. Little thing, how did it end up being you? Who brought you here? Lu Yi immediately looked down at his waist. When did it escape? But Nono, like a good rabbit, immediately pointed her claws at Lu Yi. With just a glance from Tang Xiu, Lu Yi broke into a cold sweat. Your Highness, he must have heard the little snake lord's voice and followed it here. I clearly had him caught just now. Tang Xiu turned his head and looked at Nono. You came to find him. Do you know his relationship with me? Nono immediately nodded. Yes, he's your son, right? Tang Xiu was stunned. He told you that? Nono suddenly recalled the little snake lord's words. The more you know, the faster you die, and began shaking her head vigorously. Seeing this, Tang Xiu's lips curled slightly, and then he struck Nono's forehead hard. Nono rubbed her swollen forehead, puzzled. How did he know I guessed wrong? Then Tang Xiu handed Nono over to Lu Yi. Watch him. Don't let him escape again. Nono looked back at Tang Xiu. Can he understand my thoughts? After all, my bloodline has only awakened halfway. After a moment, Tang Xiu returned to his bedroom to rest. After seeing Lu Yi leave and close the door, Nono crawled out of the cage, leapt to the bedside, and jumped onto the bed. It's been so long he hasn't woken up yet. Could he have passed out? Just as Nono was about to approach and check, Tang Xiu suddenly opened his eyes and fixed a sharp gaze on Nono. Then he took advantage of the moment to pull her into his arms. Little thing, why are you here? Since you're here, help me warm up. Nono, feeling Tang Xiu's burning forehead, knew that if he didn't take medicine soon, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, her small stature was unable to move the medicine bowl at all, just as Nono felt frustrated. The image of her mother feeding her medicine when she was little appeared in her mind. With that thought, Nono immediately acted and leaned forward, mimicking her mother's manner, and drank the medicinal soup. For her own rabbit life, Tang Xiu couldn't have any accidents. This was the only way. With that thought, she pressed her lips to Tang Xiu's mouth. Mimicking her mother's actions, she fed him the medicine. Despite doing it for his sake, Nono's cheeks still flushed slightly. After seeing Tang Xiu swallow the soup, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. It worked. Then she began the repetitive task of transferring the medicine, finally after the 99th try. Nono finally collapsed, her mouth swollen and breathing heavily, but when she touched Tang Xiu's still feverish forehead, Nono couldn't help but frown. This medicine must have been used once, right? Nono sighed helplessly. Looks like I'll have to rely on myself. The pink-furred spirit rabbit was a great tonic. You're lucky to meet me, she thought, and then stretched out her rabbit paw and bit into it. Immediately, a drop of essence blood flowed from her paw and into Tang Xiu's mouth, but at that moment the door suddenly slammed open with a bang. Lu Yi rushed in, startled. What are you doing here? How bold of you to be on the prince's bed. He glared angrily and was about to pounce on Nono. Nono, on the other hand, was internally amused. Big brother, do you have any eye for details? I'm saving your precious prince. At this moment, she saw that the prince had actually drunk most of the medicine. He looked at Nono with curiosity and asked how she had managed to do it. Nono, seeing this, proudly placed her hands on her hips and said, I'm not telling you. But the next second, Lu Yi grabbed her chubby face. If the empress finds out that the prince has been spending so much time with a tribute, she'll turn you into spicy rabbit heads. Upon hearing Empress, Nono immediately shivered. The Empress was a ruthless character, Tang Xiu's biological mother and the Emperor's most beloved concubine. She was also extremely wary of tributes influencing her son. Thinking of this, Nono decided to tell Lu Yi the method. All right, I'll show you. She then hopped over to the bowl. With smooth movements, she demonstrated the same actions again. After finishing, she turned around and flicked her paw. See, just like this. Lu Yi stood there stunned. You a mere tribute, how dare you desecrate the noble prince? Lu Yi exclaimed. Nono, with a face full of grievance, replied, why are you reacting so much? It's just a few hundred kisses, nothing big. When we tributes are sent here, we are forced to study the survival guide for tributes, which is full of disgraceful content. Compared to that, what I just did is nothing. Just as Nono was continuing her defense, Lu Yi suddenly looked out the window in a panic. Oh no, the time is almost up. We can't let this rabbit find out the prince's secret. With that, he grabbed Nono, who still had a smug look on her face, and as the night fully descended, Tang Xiu also stirred, but what woke up was the little snake lord whom Nono had been searching for. Although Lu Yi was quick, his actions still caught the little snake lord's attention. What is that in your hand? It's a dead mouse I caught. I was about to throw it away. Your Highness, don't look, Lu Yi said, but the wriggling bag made the little snake lord suspicious. Though the bag kept moving, Lu Yi quickly explained, it's just my hand. I have an old injury in my wrist which causes it to move like this sometimes. Before the little snake lord could react, Lu Yi quickly disappeared, leaving the little snake lord confused in the wind. Why does this feel strange? Don't you think so? The little snake lord looked around but received no response. Turning back, he saw that the cage was already empty. At that moment, Lu Yi had already run off, panting heavily. He stopped to open the bag and check on the rabbit. Hey, little tribute, are you still alive? But upon seeing Nono unconscious, Lu Yi's eyes turned cold. A terrifying thought emerged in his mind. Suddenly, a dagger slid out of his sleeve. Don't blame me, if you know the prince's secret, you won't survive. At this moment, Nono slightly regained consciousness and stared fiercely at Lu Yi, wondering what secret he was hiding. Meanwhile, Lu Yi's dagger had already been raised high. The prince, destined for greatness, couldn't be influenced by you. Just as Nono felt helpless watching the dagger fall towards her, the little snake lord suddenly appeared and altered the trajectory of the dagger. However, it still left a scar on Nono's arm. Upon seeing this, the little snake lord's tears flowed uncontrollably and his heart ached deeply. He immediately grabbed Luya's arm and bit into it. Bad guy let go of the rabbit, then he began fiercely using spiritual skills to attack. The next moment, Luya pressed him down, soothing him. The prince's tribute is meant to replenish the prince's health. Then, Luya turned the little snake lord around to face Nono. He said, "Eat it first and the prince will be cured," but seeing Nono, who was on the verge of death, the little snake lord's emotions erupted again. He shook off Luya and shouted, "I won't eat it, I hate you. Give me back my rabbit." Nono also sensed everything happening here and said, "Thank you, little snake lord. Thank you for trying so hard to save me. Maybe this is my fate. It's a pity I never had the chance to repay Princess Snow for saving my life. 2 years later, you'll have to marry the bloodthirsty eldest prince. I've been desperately searching for her just to save you from the flames of disaster. It seems I won't be able to accomplish that. I feel so regretful." Tears started to well up at the corners of her eyes, but strangely enough, the tears seemed to autonomously heal Nono's wounds. At that moment, Luya suddenly picked Nono up. Ignoring the little snake lord's protests, he was about to take Nono to the kitchen, no matter how the little snake lord cried or begged. Luya remained unmoved and quickly left. Just then, the little snake lord stopped, as if making a resolute decision. "To save the rabbit, please," he said. Then a light circle appeared out of nowhere. Afterward, Tang Xiu's figure gradually materialized. "Wait, who allowed you to take her?" Before Luya could explain, Tang Xiu struck him with a palm, sending him flying. "Who allowed you to hurt her? Get out and face the consequences." Then he weakly looked at Nono in his arms. "Fortunately, the wound isn't deep, but why did she bleed so much earlier?" He looked at Nono, still unconscious. Tang Xiu slowly reached his hand toward Nono and pinched her nose. Instantly, a strong sense of suffocation caused Nono to sit up in pain. "What was that? Why am I crying so badly?" Nono quickly checked her body. "I'm fine, I'm still alive. Could it be a divine intervention?" She immediately started looking around for the little snake lord, completely ignoring the scowling Tang Xiu beside her. "This silly rabbit is so full of energy after being so anxious to switch places for me." Just then, a sharp pain suddenly flashed through Tang Xiu's mind. Immediately after, fresh blood was coughed from his mouth, and Tang Xiu bitterly smiled. "Looks like the transformation just now reopened my previous injuries." His consciousness began to fade and he started falling, in Nono's shocked gaze. Tang Xiu slowly transformed back into the little snake lord. It seemed that maintaining this body while injured was too much of a strain. Seeing this, Nono could no longer suppress her sorrow, her eyes shimmering with tears. Without hesitation, she rushed toward the little snake lord. At this moment, Luya revealed the truth to Nono. "The little snake lord you know is actually the prince's other persona at night. It's because of his existence that he can provide the prince with the food and spiritual energy he needs. But because of you, he forced the prince to awaken. If anything happens to the prince, you will be tortured to death." Moments later, inside the bedroom, looking at the weak little snake lord, Nono felt heartbroken and murmured, "Is this the secret you wanted to tell me before? But no matter whether you're the little snake lord or Tang Xiu, I hope you'll be safe." After saying that, she leaned in and gently kissed his cheek. At that moment, the little snake lord, who smelled the blood lingering on Nono's claws, suddenly reached out and grabbed her claw. He slowly brought it to his mouth and began to lick it, but at that moment, Nono had no complaints, only hoping that the little snake lord would drink more so that he could regain strength and heal. Time flew by, and the next morning, Nono, still asleep, felt a tickling sensation on her bottom. As her fingers dug deeper, Nono instantly woke up, her face flushed red and her heart pounding wildly. Immediately after, there was a loud bang, and Nono transformed back into her human form. However, due to last night's injuries and healing the little snake lord, the remaining spiritual energy was insufficient to create a dress. Blushing deeply, Nono was about to get up and leave. But she was pulled back into Tang Xiu's embrace tightly as he slept. Just as she tried to sneak away, Tang Xiu caught her. Seeing things were about to get out of control, Nono made up her mind. With a burst of energy, she aimed for Tang Xiu's face. "It's just a dream, keep sleeping." But the next second, a crisp cracking sound of breaking butterfly wings made Nono immediately turn around. At that moment, the whole room was silent. Then came the furious shout from Luya, "Who are you? What have you done to my noble prince?" Nono, not willing to back down, transformed but lacked enough energy to create clothing. "What can I do about that?" Upon hearing this, Luya was immediately startled. "You're that rabbit?" Nono nodded affirmatively. "How dare you, a mere offering, defile my prince's purity? If the empress knows, you're done for." Nono, upon hearing this, felt speechless. "Can't you just make sure she doesn't find out?" But Luya didn't care. "If you don't want to end up as spicy rabbit heads, stay here and listen to my orders." After a moment, a warm sensation surged in her throat. This made Tang Xiu wake up from his coma, only to find a woman wearing a mask feeding him medicine. Tang Xiu was startled and instinctively flicked his tail, throwing the woman aside, causing Nono to fall to the ground with a face full of grievance. Are you sick? You're still this fierce? If it weren't for the little snake lord and the contract, I wouldn't even bother with you. At this moment, Tang Xiu, forcing himself to remain strong, ordered, This maid is too bold, let her go clean the toilet. Just as Luya was about to grab Nono and leave, Tang Xiu suddenly realized something. He called out to the two people who were about to leave, Where is that offering? Did he come here while I was unconscious? Unexpectedly, Luya's answer made Nono tremble all over. That offering? The prince saved her, but she was ungrateful and ran away after escaping the cage. Nono was confused as to why Luya was lying, but when she turned around and saw the murderous intent in Luya's eyes, she realized that this was an opportunity for Luya to drag her to the kitchen and stew her. Thinking of this, Nono desperately turned around, using all her strength to call out to Tang Xiu, her eyes filled with helplessness. Tang Xiu stared in shock at the scene before him. As tears welled up in Nono's eyes, the mask that had been on her face also fell off at that moment. In an instant, Nono turned back into a rabbit and jumped into Tang Xiu's arms. After Nono turned back into a rabbit, Tang Xiu also understood that the maid from before was actually Nono. But then, he recalled the delicate touch he had felt on his fingertips while sleeping. It should not have been a dream. Tang Xiu poked Nono's forehead with his finger. Little thing, transform for me and show me. In response, Nono shook her head violently. Do you think I can transform just because you want me to? At this moment, Tang Xiu suddenly whispered in her ear, Then tell me, what were you planning when you transformed and crawled into my bed while I was asleep? As soon as these words left his mouth, Nono's body trembled all over. It's over, he must remember that I punched him. At this point, Luya took the opportunity to speak up. Your Highness, he has impure intentions. If I hadn't come in to deliver the medicine, who knows what absurd things he might have done. I suggest making him into medicinal food. Nono, upon hearing this, didn't argue, directly breaking free from Tang Xiu's arm and moving towards the medicine. Without hesitation, she bit into her rabbit elbow and under Tang Xiu's shocked gaze. She dropped her blood into the potion, then raised her paw with a hopeful expression. Look, my blood can heal it. Please let me go. Unexpectedly, Tang Xiu became furious. Who allowed you to do this, rabbit? Nono, hearing this, looked hurt. I saved you and now you're angry. Then, trembling, she pushed the medicine towards Tang Xiu. No matter what, we can't waste it. Tang Xiu, however, arrogantly pushed the bowl away. I haven't fallen so low that I need you to hurt yourself to save me. This scene left Nono rubbing her paws, unsure of what to do. At this moment, Tang Xiu suddenly reached out and held Nono. Even if you are a spirit rabbit, you can't recklessly use your spiritual power. Don't do this again. This sudden care made Nono's cheeks turn bright red. His gentle manner now reminded her a bit of the little snake lord. But just then, Tang Xiu's shoulder was suddenly hit with sharp pain and Nono also felt it. If this continues, his wounds would definitely tear open again. Immediately, he turned around and swallowed the medicine. Without caring whether Tang Xiu would be angry, Nono immediately jumped onto Tang Xiu's shoulder and directed his mouth toward herself. Then skillfully, she poured the medicine into his mouth. Lu Yi, who was nearby, once again expressed his frustration. My prince is no longer pure. After feeding the medicine, Tang Xiu finally realized that this was how the little rabbit had always been feeding him medicine before. He cares so much about my life and death because he knows I'm the little snake lord. But it seems like both times he transformed because of me. Does he have other intentions towards me or does he like me? At this moment, Tang Xiu fell deep into thought, and no matter how much Nono shouted, it was useless. But in the next second, Tang Xiu suddenly made a move and grabbed Nono. Nono was thrown onto the bed. I want to hear your explanation. Transform and do whatever you want. This sudden move scared Nono so much that she trembled. What I want to do? Does he want to test me and see if I'll take advantage of him while he's vulnerable, and then use that as an excuse to give myself to the sixth prince? Thinking of this, the little rabbit immediately shook her paws wildly and burst into tears. No, how could I dare to covet you? Besides, how could I transform myself? But Tang Xiu, ignoring Nono's constant struggles, slowly leaned down. I'll give you one last chance. Will you transform or not? At this moment, upon seeing Tang Xiu's abdominal muscles, Nono's cheeks immediately turned red and her eyes sparkled. The familiar feeling of restlessness spread throughout her body, as if she was really about to transform. Tang Xiu also eagerly stared at the change in front of him. Then with a puff, the little rabbit was still just a rabbit. The magical power was insufficient and the transformation failed. Tang Xiu instantly became furious and ordered Lu Yi take her away and lock her up. Tomorrow, let the sixth prince take her away. Watching Nono's distant figure, Tang Xiu fell into deep thought. Could this little one have conditions for transforming? The next day, groggy Nono heard that Lu Yi had handed her over to the maid. When Nono saw the excited look on the maid's face, she immediately became alert. The sweetness emanating from her body made the maid continuously get closer to her. Don't be afraid, I'm responsible for taking care of your fragile bones. But in Nono's eyes, how could she not be afraid? I don't trust you at all. Your eyes are clearly glowing with bloodlust. After speaking, she swiftly sprang from the maid's arms. The maid, seeing this, immediately became furious, grinding her teeth. With her mouth open, she transformed and chased after Nono, little offering, let's see where you can run. After a chase, Nono was left lying on the ground in tears, feeling like it was all her fault. She had exhausted too much energy last night and couldn't run anymore. But she forgot that Tangziu was just within reach. Nono gritted her teeth, just push harder, run to Tangziu and I'll be safe. With that thought, she kicked off and jumped forward, but suddenly everything went dark. Who am I? Where am I? Nono was struck and knocked out cold. The scene changed, and Tangziu was smiling as he held the sack. Fox friends and old tales guarding the rabbit, it really worked. Meanwhile, Nono was still struggling nonstop. Who are you? Let me out. At this moment, Tangziu released Nono. Hey, the fat and lustful little rabbit, we meet again. Nono quietly cursed in her mind, this is even more dangerous, Tangziu. But before Nono could continue to be shocked, another tall figure suddenly overshadowed the two of them. Just as Nono had barely escaped from the crowd, trouble came knocking at her door again. Nono was so frightened that she shuddered. Is this the real form of a snake, bloodthirsty and brutal? Without any hesitation, she quickly jumped back into the sack. Go ahead, brother, I think it's safer inside the bag. To her surprise, Tang Si, without any sense of justice, raised his hand, and Nono was instantly sent flying into the air. She was about to fall straight into the snake's mouth. Ah, Tang Si, you're really a jerk. As the snake's mouth was about to swallow Nono, a tail suddenly appeared and wrapped around her. Nono, dazed, was once again caught by Tang Si. Surprised, excited, fun, just as she spoke, the huge snake opened its mouth again and lunged at the two of them. But Tang Si was unflustered. My third brother raised it for a month without making a move. How dare you, a little bitch, act so recklessly? As his words fell, his tail cut through the air with a blurred image. In the blink of an eye, the big snake reached out and touched the tail. It was Nono's first time seeing such a scene, and she was shocked once again. Tang Si, seeing this, teased her, you weren't scared? You really are suitable to work in my Kaienji pavilion. I should thank my third brother. Say, let's go. He hummed a tune and turned to leave with Nono. At that moment, Nono, still inside the sack, felt helpless. The images of Tangziu and the little snake lord appeared in her mind. So scary, little snake lord. So scary, Tangziu, do you really not want to spit on me? After a while, Tang Si returned to the palace. Looking at the sack that was still wriggling, he couldn't help but sigh, this little thing is so lively. Nono, inside the sack, was still desperately chewing on it, trying to escape with the experience from being caught multiple times. Why is this sack so tough? It's so hard to bite. After some effort, she finally tore it open, only to find a cage inside. Tang Si, smiling, looked at her. Wanna run? Luya told me everything about you, little chick. Then the mood shifted as he grinned evilly. Do you want to be sent to the beast arena or to the weapons pavilion? Seeing this, Nono's heart was already in her throat. Tangziu, if you don't come to save me, I'm really done for. Just as Tang Si was about to decide whether to send Nono to the weapons pavilion, suddenly a leaf shot from a distance. In the blink of an eye, Tang Si's hand holding the cage was injured. As the cage fell, a tail wrapped around it. At this moment, Tangziu slowly walked over. I finally fell asleep and you woke me up again. Tang Si muttered under his breath, I clearly used a soundproofing technique. You're bold to use a soundproofing technique to steal a rabbit from my mansion, but your technique doesn't work on a rabbit's voice. He then released Nono from the cage. Nono, filled with excitement and tears, rushed to Tangziu. She pressed her face tightly against Tangziu's cheek. Tangziu, so you didn't plan to send me away? You really are a good person. At that moment, Tang Si, who was standing aside, couldn't stay still. Third brother, you're being way too nice to this rabbit. You actually harmed your own younger brother for her. That's really a bit much. Tangziu, unconcerned, replied, my biological mother is Empress Yi and your biological mother is Consort Lin. To be precise, we're not even real brothers. At his words, Tang Si's face showed a trace of disappointment. Third brother, what you said really hurts me. Then after biting his lip, he returned to his usual demeanor. At least I saved your precious little rabbit. Did you see that maid in her braids? He bent down to look at Nono. Third brother, have you ever thought about why that maid suddenly lost her mind and went crazy? I think it's because of the scent on her. Hearing the word scent, Nono was stunned. My scent? The blood of the offering does indeed stimulate the appetite of those who consume it. That's why our long-eared rabbit clan is usually very careful and tries not to get hurt. But my wound has already healed, so why is there still a scent? Speak then, 7 Point stretched its claws and placed them in front of Tangziu. Smell it, Tangziu's face instantly turned red and he hurriedly tossed Nono into the cage, clearly embarrassed. Stay there and behave, don't move around these next few days. Time quickly moved to the evening. A sound of unlocking startled Nono awake from its sleep. Little bunny, you're awake, huh? Even a cage can't restrain the heart of a foodie. The moment Niu Niu opened its eyes after being locked up by Tang Xiu, it saw the little snake someone it hadn't seen for a long time appear in front of it, Little Bunny. He hid the key so I can't open it and take you to sneak food, but this can't stop a foodie's determination. Niu Niu immediately pointed upwards, that. Together with the cage, they moved quickly to the window beneath the kitchen. But when the little snake looked at the high entrance, it shivered. I can't, I'm afraid of heights. Then looking at the drooling Niu Niu, it added, the bunny must be very hungry, right? With Niu Niu looking puzzled, the little snake put the cage down. Then taking a deep breath under Niu Niu's astonished gaze, it rushed toward the main door with all its strength, with a loud bang. The door swung open before Niu Niu could recover from the shock. The little snake picked it up again. Little bunny, let's go, we'll get something delicious to eat. As soon as they entered, the room filled with food surrounded them. Niu Niu instantly activated its foodie mode, but when it saw the little snake showing no appetite, Niu Niu couldn't help but sigh inwardly. These two, one doesn't take medicine during the day and the other doesn't eat at night. Such worrywarts. Thinking this, Niu Niu immediately pushed a chicken drumstick toward the little snake. Eat. The little snake, not wanting to make Niu Niu worry, picked up the drumstick and hesitantly took a bite. But as soon as it entered its mouth, it started coughing violently with a flash of sorrow in its eyes. Then it grasped Niu Niu's paw and said, little bunny, I don't know how much longer I can stay with you. Although he saved you yesterday, if I'm gone, there will be no one to restrain him from hurting you. You should find a way to escape. Hearing this, Niu Niu looked at the little snake with a pained expression. I sensed yesterday that Tang Xiu had murderous intent, but I didn't know who he wanted to kill. But now I think I understand the answer. Tang Xiu plans to target his other personality. He wants the little snake to disappear. Thinking this, Niu Niu could no longer hold back tears. Little snake, don't disappear, I don't want you to disappear. You're my only friend in this whole place. The little snake reluctantly picked up Niu Niu and gently pressed its lips against Niu Niu's forehead. Thank you, little bunny. Everyone else wants me gone, but only you want me to live. But after knowing you for so long, I still don't know your name. Little bunny, do you have a name? Niu Niu didn't mind and started drawing in the little snake's palm. Soft treasure, don't worry. Before I disappear, I'll find a way to help you escape. As the night faded, it was time for the little snake to leave. After making sure Niu Niu was settled, it sat down and started writing a letter at the desk. Niu Niu looked curious, not knowing what the little snake was writing, or who the letter was for, but the next day when Tang Xiu received the letter, Niu Niu finally understood. This was how they had been communicating all along. After reading it, Tang Xiu suddenly crumpled the letter in anger. Flames suddenly ignited, and seeing this scene, Niu Niu was immediately startled. She didn't know what little snake lord had written on the paper to make Tang Xiu so angry. Just as Niu Niu was lost in wild thoughts, the black cloth covering the cage was suddenly lifted. Tang Xiu's cold eyes stared at her. Have you seen enough? To break the awkward atmosphere, Niu Niu pushed half of the meat skewer, covered with her own rabbit fur, toward Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu's face instantly filled with disgust. At this moment, Lu Yi came to report. Your Highness, Consort Yi sent someone to invite you over. Upon hearing this, Tang Xiu turned his head to respond. Then he turned and left, leaving Niu Niu stomping her feet in anger. Don't go, I'm still in the cage. At least open the door for me. As soon as Tang Xiu left, a maid walked in carrying a plate of fruit. Just as Niu Niu was wondering who she was, the maid handed the plate of fruit to her. This servant, Yin Guo, has been sent by His Highness to take care of you. Hearing this, Niu Niu secretly mumbled, Tang Xiu still has a bit of conscience. At least he knows to send me food. While thinking this, she sneaked a glance at Yin Guo. The girl was young and quiet. She probably won't go crazy like Kui Guo, right? But even if she does, she shouldn't be able to open the cage. With this thought, Niu Niu drifted off to sleep. But at that moment, someone silently approached the maid from behind and covered her mouth and nose tightly with burlap. In no time, the maid collapsed. Meanwhile, the sleeping Niu Niu was taken away from the sleeping quarters. Niu Niu finally woke up amidst a bumpy ride, confused and startled. What's going on? Who's trying to capture me this time? Tang Xiu, little snake lord, save me. Moments later, the bag containing Niu Niu was untied. An eunuch spoke, the tribute has been delivered. Niu Niu timidly poked her head out and looked around. Where am I? The next second, 6 pairs of eyes suddenly locked onto her. Niu Niu trembled all over in fear. Could this be the royal kitchen of the Snake Palace? At that moment, someone wearing a headscarf spoke, put it on her. Immediately, a maid placed a silk ribbon around Niu Niu's neck. Niu Niu trembled even more. Are they going to eat me? Watching the maid fiddle with her, Niu Niu couldn't help but think, only Tang Xiu has the key. Could it be that Tang Xiu is giving me to someone else to eat? Soon after being dressed up, Niu Niu was placed on a cushion. Good job, Tang Xiu. I even saved 2 meatballs for you, and this is how you repay me. Shortly afterward, a dazed Niu Niu was taken to a quiet pavilion. Madam, the tribute has been brought. Inside the pavilion sat a dignified and elegant lady, gently holding a teacup. Bring her over. Hearing the word Madam, Niu began trembling all over. Madams love beauty, and as a blood slave, I am the best nourishment in the world, good for beauty, rejuvenation, and longevity. Looks like I truly can't escape this time. Farewell, little snake lord. The next second, the madam pushed a plate of pastries over and said, I heard you love eating. Niu froze for a moment and looked at the madam in disbelief. For me to eat? Seeing the madam's kind smile with no malice, and then glancing at the delicious pastries in front of her, Niu forgot her fear. It shouldn't be poisoned, right? After all, poisoned rabbit meat wouldn't taste good either. Without hesitation, she began eating in big bites. As soon as she took a bite, Niu couldn't help but exclaim, so soft, fragrant, and melts in your mouth. It's so delicious. I have to eat more just in case this is my last meal. Meanwhile, the madam was gently playing with Niu's ears and remarked with a smile, this little thing is quite endearing. She then said, all right, send her back. Niu froze upon hearing this. So that's it? After such a grand gesture, all you did was bring me here to eat something delicious? Looking at the madam's still smiling face, Niu was left completely dumbfounded. At this moment, Nono was filled with confusion. Who exactly is she? After being warmly treated by her future mother-in-law, Nono. The figure of little snake lord never appeared again, but that night, the sound of grinding woke Nono from her sleep. As her vision gradually cleared, the silhouette of little snake lord slowly appeared. Sorry, soft treasure, I couldn't come to you these past 2 days. I'll rescue you right away. Watching little snake lord's efforts, Nono couldn't help but worry. So many heaven's prisons haven't changed little snake lord, is he really okay? Soon, after multiple attempts, the lock was finally opened by little snake lord. Just as Nono was about to throw herself into little snake lord's arms, he suddenly collapsed in front of her. Nono froze in an instant, unable to believe what was happening in front of her. She immediately lunged toward little snake lord, soft treasure. You should escape. At the very least, before I disappear, I must save you. Watching little snake lord's gradually fading figure, Nono became extremely anxious. It's not even dawn yet, and little snake lord is about to turn into a prison guard. Is there really no way to save you? At this moment, Nono suddenly remembered that spirit rabbit blood could heal physical wounds. If I use my own blood. Thinking of this, Nono began to emit a glowing light. In the blink of an eye, she transformed into human form. Perhaps this can repair a damaged soul. Saying this, Nono bit her own tongue. Please don't die, you're my only friend. A moment later. Watching little snake lord's breathing gradually stabilize, Nono finally let out a long sigh of relief. When she touched her own ears, Nono was startled. What's going on? Although it's my first time transforming voluntarily, why is it incomplete? At this moment, the weak little snake lord kept muttering mother. This immediately broke Nono's heart. She gently stroked his head. Only something that Tangziu fears can allow little snake lord to exist. But what can I do to make Tangziu afraid? She stayed up all night. Nono's lifeless appearance caught Tangziu's attention. What's wrong? No appetite today? Or did he feed you so well last night that you won't eat mine? Hearing this, Nono instantly grew furious. Sticking out her injured tongue, she snapped, isn't it because I was saving you? Unexpectedly, Tangziu poked Nono's forehead forcefully. Turns out you bit your tongue while sleeping, you silly rabbit. He then leaned toward Nono's rabbit ears. What did you do last night to transform into human form? Nono looked puzzled. I don't know either, I just did what I had done with you before. Hearing this, Tangziu immediately recalled the scenes of the two of them together and became furious. He grabbed Nono's cheeks. He is he and I am me. What you do with me, you must never do with him. Do you hear me? At this moment, Louis reported, Your Highness, concubine E demands the tribute rabbit that loves to snack. Upon hearing this, Nono was utterly shocked. What, my mom? She immediately clung tightly to Tangziu's arm. Tangziu, you have to save me. Your mother isn't planning to eat me, is she? And now I don't even know how to turn back into a rabbit. Then a familiar scene played out again. No, Tangziu, save me. During the struggle, Tangziu's shirt button suddenly came undone. Revealing his firm abs in an instant, the atmosphere turned dead silent. I swear I didn't do it on purpose. Do you believe me? I'll help you button it back up, okay? Just as she was about to fix it. Her hair got stuck again, in her panic as she tried to free her hair. Tangziu suddenly grabbed her wrist and pulled her into his arms. Don't move, just stay like this. Feeling the rapid beating of her heart, Tangziu suddenly had a thought. Could his transformation condition be this? To test his theory, Tangziu hugged Nono even tighter. Then he leaned close to Niu's ear and whispered softly, Is your heart beating so fast because of me? Hearing Tangziu's steady breathing, Niu's heartbeat quickened even more. Immediately after, Niu closed her eyes, and the next second, with a poof, she transformed back into a rabbit. Tangziu picked up Niu, showing a just as I thought expression. After getting the answer he wanted, Tangziu casually tossed Niu to Lu Ye. Take her to see my mother. At that moment, Niu, who had just realized what was happening, broke down and started crying. Bunny doesn't want to go, she wailed, as if resigned to her fate. What happened next, however, shocked Niu. The sequence of events, the location, it all felt so familiar. And then the familiar figure appeared. It was her, she was the Empress. The person who had previously caught her just to feed her desserts turned out to be Tang Xiu's mother. Before Nuno could snap out of her shock, the Empress with a warm smile carried her to the table. Eat up, little one. Seeing the table filled with delicious food, Nuno immediately caved in. At that moment, only one thought filled her mind. This Empress is actually really nice, just as Nuno was indulging in this unexpected happiness. The Empress suddenly shifted the topic. I always felt like the beads on this string lacked a certain brilliance. She then looked at Nuno. Your eyes are exceptionally beautiful. If they were strung together, they would surely stand out, the Empress added, her expression completely serious. The pastry in Nuno's hand instantly dropped to the ground, as expected, like mother, like son. Nearby, other concubines began offering suggestions to the Empress. Your Highness, wouldn't they make for lovely earrings? Nuno began trembling in fear, tears welling up in her eyes. Unable to hold it in any longer, she burst into loud wails. Startled, the Empress asked, why are you crying already? The Empress immediately stepped forward, picked up Nuno and comforted her. Did I scare you? Oh, I'm so sorry, I was only teasing you. She continued, you're such a pitiful child, so young yet already sent to this dreadful place. Seeing the Empress's compassionate expression, Nuno was unexpectedly moved. Even though she's so noble, she's still so kind to me. It almost felt like the Empress was her own mother. The Empress continued, the only reason you're still alive is because Zier likes you, but if one day he no longer does, your fate will be grim. Do you understand, little treasure? Hearing little treasure, Nuno froze. Only little snake would call her that. How did she know? The Empress, understanding her confusion, lightly tapped Nuno's nose with her finger. To me, the two of you are no different, you're both my children. As she spoke, she took out a bead from her sleeve. If you want to survive, you'll have to fight for it. Here, take this sugar pill. It'll help you win Zier's favor and ensure your safety. Time passed quickly and it was soon evening. After his bath, Tang Xiu found Nuno lying on the mat, her cheeks flushed red. Worried, he moved closer to check. Is she running a fever? Just as his hand was about to touch her forehead, Nuno suddenly lunged at Tang Xiu. So hot, I want to stick close to Snake Lord, your skin feels so cool. Tang Xiu, full of disdain, immediately shouted, get lost, or I'll turn you into spicy rabbit head. But as he leaned closer, Tang Xiu realized something was wrong. Nuno's eyes were vacant and her body was burning up. Is this poisoning? Before Tang Xiu could react, there was a loud bang. Nuno transformed again, collapsing into his arms. I feel so hot and uncomfortable, she murmured, just as she was about to make her next move. Tang Xiu's gaze instantly turned icy. How dare you provoke me? He growled before firmly covering Nuno's mouth. The curtain beside them instantly wrapped Nuno like a zongzi and tossed her out. Tang Xiu then stood up, adjusted his clothing and calmly said, just go back and I'll pretend none of this ever happened. To this, Nuno blurted out in shock, what did you say? Could it be? You can't do it. As soon as these words were spoken, Tang Xiu spat out blood and turned to retort, who are you saying can't do it? He immediately grabbed Nuno by the neck. Are you really not afraid that I'll kill you? Nuno, breathing heavily with no sign of backing down, replied, believe it or not, I really can't go back right now. Feel me, I'm burning up all over. If I go back, I might die. Tears began welling up in her eyes as she pleaded, please, Tang Xiu. But before she could finish, Tang Xiu abruptly pushed her down onto the bed. The situation escalated and Tang Xiu leaned down, saying coldly, little thing, you brought this on yourself. What followed was a series of strange noises and then the only thing left was Nuno tied up tightly. All right, you'll stay like this for tonight. When Nuno tried to speak again, Tang Xiu immediately scolded her, cry one more time and I'll tie up your mouth too. Nuno pleaded, Tang Xiu, I'm just an offering, this is what I'm supposed to do. Besides, I can't control what's happening to my body. Hearing this, Tang Xiu's face darkened. Is that so? You can't control it, but I can. With that, he grabbed Nuno's hand and started walking out. Moments later, they arrived at a lake. Tang Xiu pushed Nuno forward. If you can't control it, then go into the water and calm yourself down. Terrified, Nuno turned and ran. I'm not going in, I'm not going in. However, Tang Xiu's tail suddenly swept out, knocking Nuno off balance. The next second, with a loud splash, she fell into the lake. Seeing this, Tang Xiu panicked. He immediately extended his tail into the water to rescue her, but as soon as it touched the lake, a flood of deep memories surged into his mind. In the vision, his mother stood on the surface of the lake, holding a trembling little snake. At the same time, a blood-soaked woman on the ground desperately screamed, my child, let go of my child. You're truly insane, daring to harm the prince, the Empress coldly remarked, showing no concern as she smiled and placed the little snake on the icy surface. Oh my, it's so cold. The next second, with a forceful motion, she pressed the snake into the water, calmly watching it struggle beneath the surface. This scene left the young Tang Xiu utterly shocked. How could his mother? Tang Xiu snapped back to reality, withdrawing his tail in despair and standing there in a daze. He completely forgot that Nunu had already fallen into the water. Fortunately, Nunu used a breathing technique her father had taught her to survive underwater. However, an enraged Nunu decided not to surface immediately. HMPH, since you played dirty first, Tangzu, I'll make you worry for a while. Still, the icy water did help alleviate the heat in her body. What Nunu didn't know was that a shadowy figure was silently approaching her. Just as she was complaining about how long it was taking Tangzu to save her, a strong force suddenly tried to drag her down. She looked and saw a large golden fish tightly biting onto her clothes. After a brief moment of eye contact, the golden fish confirmed its intent, increased its strength, and began dragging Nunu toward the depths of the lake. Nunu struggled to call out to Tangzu, but only bubbles emerged from her mouth as the lake's surface grew farther and farther away. Nunu's consciousness began to fade, and at that moment Tangzu finally came to his senses, feeling Nunu's faint presence. Tangzu realized Nunu was in grave danger, submerged in the icy, dark waters of the lake. Deep in Tangzu's mind, a memory resurfaced. On one side was his deepest fear, and on the other was Nunu sinking slowly. Despite his overwhelming anxiety, Tangzu hesitated, paralyzed by his fear. If I don't save her now, she will die, he thought. Just then, a golden fish began tearing at Nunu, but in the next moment, with a loud boom, a shadow smashed into the golden fish in a flash. In the blink of an eye, the fish fell unconscious, and a thick snake tail wrapped around Nunu, pulling her upward. Accompanied by a splash, Nunu resurfaced and appeared in Tangzu's arms. Seeing Nunu's pale face, Tangzu immediately squeezed her stomach with his snake tail, forcing out the lake water she had swallowed. As Nunu coughed up the water, her consciousness began to return. The next second, she angrily grabbed Tangzu, her eyes brimming with tears, and cried, "Why did you take so long to save me? I almost got eaten by that ugly fish, you know." While Nunu was still complaining, someone suddenly emerged from the lake and said, "Your Highness, that ugly fish is a golden carp." The speaker was expressionless but extremely handsome and was walking slowly while carrying the golden carp. Seeing this, Nunu's eyes instantly sparkled. "Wow, such a handsome guy. Thank you for avenging me." Seeing Nunu so excited, Tangzu immediately said, "Lanya, step back." Just as Nunu was about to ask if the big fish could be eaten, Tangzu draped his coat over her and said, "Put this on. Let's go." As they walked, Nunu kept glancing at Tangzu. He's so weird sometimes, he's so fierce, but now he's acting strangely considerate. But just then, Tangzu suddenly grabbed his chest and growled, "Don't provoke him, or I'll kill you." This sudden outburst left Nunu utterly confused. Provoke who? Lanya, the handsome guy. Hearing this, Tangzu became even angrier. "What, you still want to provoke Lanya?" Nunu immediately shook her head repeatedly. I wouldn't dare." The next second, with a loud bang, Tangzu reverted to his small snake form, leaving only the little snake behind. The little snake kept calling out, soft treasure, soft treasure." Realizing this, Nunu chuckled to herself. "So that's what he meant earlier. Tangzu, you idiot, how could I ever do anything to little snake?" Watching the little snake sleep peacefully, Nunu yawned. "I'm so sleepy, I've used up all my magic. Let's have sweet dreams together, little snake, but don't mess with Bunny. Otherwise, even if you're the king of the water, you'll understand why fish think twice." Just as Nunu and Little Snake fell asleep outside, Lanya secretly brought them back to the palace. A moment later, in the royal chambers, Little Snake woke up from his sleep, feeling the chill on his chest. When he saw Nunu trembling beside him, Little Snake felt a deep pang of pity and immediately ordered Lanya to bring a brazier. Only when Nunu gradually warmed up did Little Snake finally relax. Then he turned to Lanya and demanded, "Tell me exactly what happened earlier." Lanya replied, "The sacrificial offering was injured by the golden carp in the lotus pond. I was lying in wait on your orders, but I know nothing else." Hearing this, Little Snake instantly became furious. "So this happened, it's unforgivable." Just as he was about to unleash his anger, he suddenly felt warmth on his fingertips and looked down to see Nunu gently blowing on his hand. Little Snake Lord's expression instantly changed when he saw this. "Soft treasure, where did that fish bite you? Does it still hurt?" Upon hearing this, Nunu immediately stuck out her bottom and showed the wound on her thigh, full of grievance. Staring at the wound, Little Snake Lord was furious. "The injury hasn't healed? Was it that jingly fish gifted by the Yingdu Kingdom? They really haven't given up yet." Jingly fish are aquatic overlords with bodies shining in golden light, but they are naturally afraid of eagle beasts. This is why jingly are considered unique spiritual pets of the Yingdu Kingdom. The priests of Yingdu select certain jingly fish and cast spells on them, binding them to serve only their masters for life. They hide in water pools, staying invisible for decades. They're Yingdu's most secretive tools. That said, Little Snake Lord muttered as he picked up some ointment, applying it to Nunu's wound while pondering, "That jingly must be over 1,000 years old and capable of transforming into human form." Tangzu surely noticed it. Thinking of this, Little Snake Lord's gaze turned cold. "The injury to soft treasure is his responsibility." Seeing this, Nunu was shocked. Although Little Snake Lord often acted childishly, the cruelty in his eyes was exactly like Tang Xiu's. At that moment, Lanya spoke up. My lord, how should we deal with that jingly fish? Hearing this, Little Snake Lord patted Nunu's bottom and said, soft treasure, you decide. Hearing this, Nunu immediately perked up, stretching out her rabbit paw and making a slicing motion across her neck. Lan Yi, standing nearby, looked awkward. The tribute? It's already over for it. Little Snake Lord explained that's not what soft treasure means. She means to cook it into a dish. Moments later, a steaming, crystal-clear fish was served. Seeing it, Nunu's mouth started watering. However, when she noticed Little Snake Lord beside her who had no appetite, Nunu's joy faded into worry. He hasn't eaten much for several bowls now. Even if my blood nourishes him, it's not enough to fill him up. Just then, Little Snake Lord's entire body began trembling. His lips murmured softly, cold. Nunu panicked immediately. Is he about to turn back into Tang Xiu? Then with a loud poof, both Nunu and Lanya watched in shock as a small snake appeared before them. The trembling snake grew colder and colder as Nunu rushed forward to hold it. Why did he turn into a little snake, and why is he getting colder? As Nunu was confused, Lanya explained his body is inherently cold and the water from the flower pool is comparable to ice. The cold invaded his heart and injured his vital energy. Saying this, Lanya pulled out an ancient blade from behind. My lord saved you, now it's your turn to save him. Hearing this, Nunu froze, then solemnly stretched out her rabbit paw and closed her eyes, ready for the blade's touch. As the blade grazed her skin, Nunu placed the little snake over her wound and the snake started sucking. Moments earlier, Nunu had been fearless, ready to sacrifice herself. Now she weakly murmured, enough already, Little Snake Lord. I'm going to turn into dried rabbit meat. Fortunately, it worked. The snake's body gradually recovered. In the next instant, the little snake turned back into Tang Xiu, still sucking on Nunu's paw. Seeing this, Nunu immediately pulled her paw back. You can't suck anymore. If you do, I'll really become rabbit jerky. Tang Xiu furrowed his brows. As Nunu tried to flee, Tang Xiu grabbed her by the hind leg and pulled her back. Nunu, now sprawled on the ground, looked utterly defeated. Darn it, I forgot about the wound on my hind leg. Seeing this, Nunu panicked. If she didn't stop him, she might not survive this. Just as Nunu didn't know what to do, a loud bang was heard and Nunu transformed into human form. Using the momentum of her transformation, she kicked Tang Xiu square in the face and bolted. But she hadn't run far when she felt a sharp tug on her ankle. Tang Xiu had grabbed her again. With one swift pull, he slammed her to the ground. Nunu turned to Lanya, who was still standing nearby, and screamed for help. Lanya, do something about your lord. Fertilizer Ant Lan disappeared in an instant, more than 100 meters away. Since the prince has woken up, I'll go prepare breakfast right away. Nunu bit her rabbit teeth. You're lying. When has your prince ever had breakfast? But at that moment, Tang Xiu had already arrived behind Nunu and instantly pushed her to the ground. Just as he was about to press his face against Nunu's, Tang Xiu suddenly grabbed Nunu's hand. He began to instantly work on the wound. Seeing that Tang Xiu had no intention of stopping, Nunu immediately panicked. Suddenly, Nunu's head became hot, and with a bang, she charged at Tang Xiu. Fortunately, her stubborn head didn't knock her unconscious. She then dragged the unconscious Tang Xiu and pushed him onto the bed. You're really heavy. After a whole night of trouble, I'm exhausted, she said before lying down and turning to look at the soundly sleeping Tang Xiu. Nunu also yawned and quickly snuggled into Tang Xiu's arms and fell asleep. Time flew by and soon it was noon. At this time, Tang Xiu, whose arm was numb from Nunu using it as a pillow, woke up from his deep sleep and looked at Nunu's leg injury. Tang Xiu slowly leaned over and gently caressed it, his eyes lighting up. With a forceful push of his palm, Nunu was instantly launched into the air, and the whole world sounded like a pig being slaughtered. After a moment, Nunu glared at Tang Xiu with an angry face. What are you doing? That hurts. Tang Xiu remained indifferent. Where did this tooth mark come from? What did you do with him last night? Nunu waved her hand dismissively. You can't even do it and he's just a child. What could he have done? Besides, anyone else would be better than you. Upon hearing this, Tang Xiu was instantly dumbfounded. No way, Nunu continued. I only lost control after eating something from Empress Fa. Besides, I'm not tied to you. Do you really have to throw me into a stone pit to feed the fish? Upon hearing this, Tang Xiu frowned slightly and then pinched Nunu's cheek. So you're hoping for someone else to solve your crisis? Nunu struggled. Let go of me, why can't I? I just wanted to survive. You're being unreasonable. If you can't do it, why stop others? As soon as she finished speaking, Tang Xiu's anger flared up. He tightened his grip. You really don't know when to quit. At that moment, the wound on Nunu's palm caught Tang Xiu's attention. He stared at the wound. Tang Xiu's fragmented memories began to clear up. Did you leave this to save me? He then let go of Nunu's face and spoke slowly. Other people just can't do it. At this moment, Lanya came to report. I found out that the crown prince secretly met with the ambassador from the kingdom of Yingdu. Upon hearing this, Tang Xiu froze. The crown prince. After a moment of thought, he spoke. This situation is serious. It looks like I need to invite the crown prince to join us for a meal. Just then, after hearing that the crown prince was coming to the banquet, an idea suddenly sprang into Nuu's mind. Poisoning the crown prince might be the best opportunity to save the princess. But where could the poison come from? That became the next problem Nunu had to face. As she was lost in thought, a flash of inspiration struck her. Moments later, Nunu's voice rang out in the room. Ouch, that hurts. Tang Xiu turned his head to look. He was immediately shocked by the scene in front of him. Nunu had raised her injured leg and looked at Tang Xiu with a shy expression. This bite mark can't heal by itself. You'll have to take responsibility. Tang Xiu, now snapped back to his senses, spoke calmly. What do you want me to do? Hearing Tang Xiu's reply, Nunu immediately became excited. Of course, find me a doctor. Tang Xiu paused for a moment before instructing Lan Yi, go ask Dr. He to come, stay close to her and watch over her. After giving the order, Tang Xiu glanced at Lan Yi and reconsidered. Never mind, stay 10 steps away from her. After a long wait, Nunu, growing anxious in the courtyard, couldn't help but complain, why hasn't Dr. He come yet? Nunu glanced at Aunt Lan, who was observing her from 10 steps away. Just as she was about to offer some fruit to strike up a conversation, a voice floated from behind her. What, does someone still need this doctor to look at them personally? Hearing the words, Nunu turned around and saw a small girl with a youthful face standing behind her. Is it you? At these words, Nunu immediately lifted her skirt to reveal the wound. It's me, yes. Look, this wound was caused by a bite and won't heal. At this moment, the little girl, upon seeing the wound, showed a face full of anger and turned to leave. Do you think I'm just anyone? A little wound like this and you want me to come all the way here? Forget it, I'm leaving. As the doctor turned to leave, Nunu quickly grabbed her foot. Don't go, Dr. He. A tug-of-war ensued. Seeing she couldn't persuade Dr. He, Nunu felt a pang in her heart and said, how about a deal? I'm a pink-furred spirit rabbit with healing powers. I've heard you stayed in the manor to treat Tang Xiu. I can help you. Dr. He paused in surprise, then immediately grabbed Nunu's hands. Without saying much, she agreed. Moments later, Dr. He rummaged through her medicine box and shook her head. I didn't bring all the ingredients. I'll go back to my clinic and prepare the antidote for you. Just as she was about to get up, Nunu stealthily approached her from behind. Dr. He, can I come with you? I just want to observe. After being rejected, Nunu quickly added, Dr. He, it's just that I need a little of your blood for research. If you want blue clothes to be there, he'll definitely stop me. Looking at Nunu's sincere expression, Dr. He sighed helplessly and then scratched her cheek. She turned to blue clothes. Blue clothes, treatment requires medicine. You don't need to follow me. I'll take care of her. Upon seeing blue clothes nod, Nunu joyfully picked up Dr. He. Zixi, I really love you. Soon, the two arrived at Dr. He's residence. Seeing the room full of medicinal ingredients, Nunu immediately felt overwhelmed. As Nunu carefully examined a certain medicinal herb, Dr. He scolded, that's highly toxic. Don't touch it. With a sharp scolding, Nunu had an idea. She immediately put on a surprised expression and asked, what about that one? I'll stay away from the others. Dr. He paused, then pointed out a few herbs. This one, and that one in the corner. As soon as she finished speaking, Nunu immediately flashed a bright smile. Taking advantage of Dr. He's busy moment, Nunu began picking out the herbs she needed. Just as she finished packing, Blue Clothes' voice came from behind. The prince is here. Nunu was startled, feeling a chill down her spine. Oh no, I need to hide. She quickly darted towards the room. Dr. He's here, just say I'm in the medicine cellar. The moment she finished speaking, Tang Xiu pushed open the courtyard door and entered. Where is she? In the medicine cellar, lightly toxic, Dr. He responded, as Tang Xiu walked towards the room. Dr. He was left standing with a face full of worry. I told you to bathe and you're still coming in? Meanwhile, Nunu, hearing footsteps drawing nearer, felt her heart rate accelerate. You can't come in. At the same time, the highly toxic herbs were dangerously close to Tang Xiu. To avoid being discovered, Nunu immediately called out to attract his attention. Stop, stop, I'm in the middle of a bath, you can't come in. To her surprise, Tang Xiu ignored her. Are you suffering from amnesia? I've seen every rabbit hair on you. Nunu continued to argue, who knows if you just want to see again. At these words, Tang Xiu's expression darkened immediately. Without saying another word, he walked straight toward Nunu. Feeling Tang Xiu's intense aura, Nunu trembled all over, then with a loud thud, Tang Xiu placed his hands firmly on the edge of the bath, coldly saying, I'm here to remind you that the crown prince will arrive soon. You'd better not wander around the manor. If he takes a liking to you, I won't be able to save you, Tang Xiu added. Nunu's eyes flashed with a trace of struggle. This might work. I can get more opportunities to assassinate the crown prince. She immediately turned her head and resolutely said, then it's just right. I don't need you to save me. Upon hearing this, Tang Xiu's brows furrowed slightly. Just right. His heart tightened and a fleeting sense of desolation flashed in his eyes. He then stood up and said lightly, put on your clothes and come back with me. Just as Tang Xiu was about to pick up the clothes, Niu suddenly panicked, realizing she was about to be caught. At that moment, there was a sudden splash, and Niu, disregarding everything, stood up from the water. I want to change into clean clothes. I don't want to wear this one anymore. Seeing the scene before him, Tang Xiu was momentarily stunned, then descended. He glanced at the bundle but didn't show much interest. Instead, he calmly said, "What are you trying to do? Are you going to use the same old trick? This king isn't fooled." Meanwhile, Niu kept thinking to herself, Tang Xiu already hates it when I act this proactively. If I do this, I should be able to annoy him and make him leave. With that thought, she grabbed Tang Xiu. What about this kind of trick? Will His Highness fall for it or not? Niu kept drawing closer, expecting Tang Xiu to push her away and leave. But Tang Xiu didn't follow the script. You want to force me to leave? I won't leave. He immediately began to unbutton his top. All right, then I'll join you in a bath. This sudden turn of events caught Niu completely off guard. What? This isn't how the script goes. Realizing her plan wasn't working, Niu quickly came up with a new one. Never mind, I suddenly feel dizzy. I think it's the alcohol. Doctor He, come save me, I'm going to pass out. Hearing her, Dr. He rushed in immediately, but upon seeing the scene, he froze in shock. His face instantly turned red. This is too intense, so fainting is normal. But please, control yourself. He quickly turned and left without looking back. Don't call me for such trivial matters again. Left behind in the water, Niu felt embarrassed and flustered. Come back, Dr. He, it's not what you think. Tang Xiu, seeing this, couldn't help but chuckle. All right, stop shouting. You have 1 incense's time to return to your cage, and then I won't investigate what's in that bag of yours. Soon the banquet began. Third brother, long time no see. I didn't expect third brother to be so polite. You've even brought good things for me. Tang Xiu chuckled lightly in response. When I saw the golden bell, the first person I thought of was you. Then what are we waiting for? Let's begin the feast, Tang Xiu declared as the signal for the banquet to start. One by one, the maidservants brought in food and wine, but the next second, Tang Xiu's pupils suddenly contracted. A familiar figure was unexpectedly among them. Seeing this, Tang Xiu's expression immediately darkened. You foolish rabbit. What exactly are you trying to do? Just now, Niu had disguised herself as a maid carrying a tray, intending to poison the prince. Everything seemed to be going according to her plan, but unexpectedly, the crown prince suddenly gave her a sharp, cold look. He grabbed Niu's hand, holding the tray. Wait, I always check if my food is poisoned before eating. Upon hearing this, Niu immediately panicked, silently cursing herself. Has I been found out? Before she could think further, the chopsticks with food were already brought to her lips. Pretty girl, eat a bite. Seeing that Niu didn't respond, the crown prince became displeased. What's the problem? Why haven't you taken off your veil? Under his cold gaze, Niu had no choice but to slowly lift her veil, all the while praying that Dr. He would arrive in time to save her. She regretted using so many kinds of poison, wishing she had used fewer, just as she feared her life might be forfeit. Tang Xiu suddenly spoke, does the crown prince not trust me? Without waiting for his response, Niu immediately felt deeply grateful. Tang Xiu, you really are a good person. But then Tang Xiu picked up his plate, his face dark, and stared intensely at Niu. I've already had this plate, you come over and swap the 2 plates. That way my royal brother can be at ease. Their gazes locked, and Niu's rabbit fur immediately stood up. Oh, Tang Xiu seems super angry. But she could only slowly rise, her mind racing with thoughts. What should I do? If I swap them, the plan will fail, and Tang Xiu will die from the poison. Just as Niu was unsure of what to do, a hand suddenly pressed down on her as she was getting up. Just kidding. How could I not trust my own brother? Tang Xiu said, and then seeing Niu's excited gaze, he picked up a piece of golden carp and placed it into his mouth. Great, he ate it. This way, the Snow Rabbit Princess's marriage contract will. But before Niu could celebrate, the next second, the crown prince with a face full of disdain spat out the golden carp. Seeing this, Niu looked shocked. What's going on? This is terrible. Third brother, your chef is awful, Tang Xiu said with a faint smile. Royal brother is right, but I heard you have always had a good relationship with the Wang family. Why not have them send more golden carp so that the chefs can practice? Once they get better, we can present it to Father Emperor and enjoy it together. When that time comes, I'll be sure to thank Royal brother for his help. At this, the crown prince's eyes flickered. He then stood up and said, I don't think our relationship with the Wang family is quite as good as you've heard. I'll go back and investigate who is spreading these rumors. He was about to leave when Niu, seeing this, became anxious. He's leaving. Without thinking, she immediately got up and blocked the crown prince's path. Under his questioning gaze, Niu trembled and replied, the lord specifically had the maidservants practice for 3 days to prepare for the banquet today at noon. Upon hearing this, the crown prince immediately softened, sitting back down. Interesting, play the music. As the music played, the maidservants began to dance gracefully, and Niu, standing among them, kept a determined expression. Although today's plan had failed, she knew that if the crown prince took her with him, there would be more opportunities in the future. Meanwhile, the crown prince couldn't take his eyes off Niu. He immediately pulled on Nyunyu's skirt strings and seeing her surprised gaze, pulled her into his arms. Then he looked at Tang Xiu. Third brother, your dance skills are quite good, why not give them to me? This sudden scene made Tang Xiu furious. You bold rabbit, what do you think you're doing? Just moments ago, Nyunyu had decisively thrown herself into the crown prince's arms for the princess's sake. But seeing Tang Xiu's expression as calm as water, Nyunyu's heart tightened, a feeling of unspeakable bitterness filling her chest. Tang Xiu must be really angry now. But at that moment, Tang Xiu's face remained calm, and he simply said, if royal brother likes it, I'm naturally willing to give it to you. Before he could finish, Tang Xiu suddenly made a move and ripped the veil off Nyunyu's face. Royal brother should first take a look at her true appearance. The crown prince lowered his gaze immediately. The two locked eyes, and after seeing Nyunyu's face, the crown prince suddenly showed a look of disgust, punching her away. So ugly, and you're sticking to me. Tang Xiu steadied himself and caught Nyunyu. So royal brother, please think twice. At the same time, the crown prince stood up angrily and turned to leave. Third brother, you can keep her, this is bad luck.